Love all our friends out there in YouTube land. It's your good buddy Philtastic Phil.
Hey.
And my beautiful wife. Welcome back to the channel. So we just finished X-Men 97 episode 3, Fire Made Flesh. I'm going to get my wife's impressions on it. We're not going to post this right away. I think we're going to record two videos at a clip, because I'm looking at the menu and it says extras. And then, like every 2 weeks, I guess I'll just put it up until we're done with the season. I think there's 10 or 12 episodes, so 5 episodes from us in total. So, Ani, what did you think?
This episode?
Mm-hmm.
It was good, but it was depressing.
Good but depressing. Okay.
Yeah.
Care to explain?
The part with the infant.
Yes, and I remember I told you who that infant is.
It was
Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Cable. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Cable.
Yes.
So one thing you should note, this episode is based on a X-Men story from the late 80s called Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't exactly like this. It's compacted, and Bishop was not around at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, initially, I should mention spoilers if you haven't seen the episode, of course. Initially, in the comic, it's not Sinister who gave Cable the virus. It was actually Apocalypse. Apocalypse and Cable up until the 2000s, where they were kind of built up as arch rivals, basically. And then there was supposed to be some big fight in the year 2000, and there was, but it kind of fizzled, and you don't really see them kind of intertwined too much since, at least in my opinion. What are the things that you liked?
I liked how they talked about Jean having a clone, because at first it was confusing with all these different Jean's character or whatever, and I was kind of trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and then they explained in this episode a lot more, and then it made a lot more sense. So I liked that aspect of it. I liked the backstory with Mr. Sinister. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a creepy aspect at one point.
Well, yeah, he's very creepy.
So I was like, do I really want to watch that part?
Well, two things to note about Sinister. In the first series, which you can watch on Disney Plus, there's actually, I think it's a 2-episode arc where they go into Sinister's past.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he became a mutant. He was a scientist. He was introduced to a gentleman by the name of En Sabah Nur, who, you may not know this, that's Apocalypse. And Apocalypse basically made him a mutant. And because he was this brilliant geneticist, they both liked Darwin a lot. And he was experimenting on mutants because he was actually trying to bring his wife and son, I believe, back from the dead. So they kind of modified his origin a little bit here too. But initially, the way it was written in the comic, from what I understand, it was originally meant to be that he was a nightmare of Scott's when he was a child who became free, became an actual entity.
Mm-hmm.
But they put the kibosh on that. And also a fun fact, the only people who could actually harm him I don't know if they've changed that as of late, but is Scott Summer and his brother Havoc. Just all the other powers he regenerates from. That's why when Scott blasted him here, you saw the gash didn't heal.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on Madeline Pryor?
Who?
Goblin Queen.
That's the evil one?
Well, she didn't turn out to be evil in how this ended.
I was gonna say, how did she turn from being so destructive to all of a sudden, sympathetic in a way?
Well,
Did I miss something, or?
Yeah, it looked like when Sinister created her, he created some sort of a mental hold that Jean was able to break. That's why you saw the diamond shatter. And then that's supposed to be she's of her own free will now.
Because I thought it was only Mr. Sinister who was controlling her and overpowering her.
Right.
So how was it that was overcome?
Jean because she had the same memories as Jean.
Mm-hmm.
So Jean used that to take her back to when she first met Charles Xavier. That's what you saw in the flashback. When she first became a mutant. What did you think of that, by the way? Because I know that you don't know much about Jean's backstory.
I like that part. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one good thing about X3 is that it opens with a very young Xavier and Magneto meeting a very young Jean. That was the best part of the whole movie. The only good part, at least in my opinion. But then she said, when she took her back to when she was giving birth, she said, look, whether you're the clone or I'm the clone, it doesn't matter. But, you're his mother,
right.
And nothing can take that from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that combination of history basically allowed her to shatter that control.
So then, what I didn't understand is if Jean had the ability to overcome her other Jean's power, I guess I don't know what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
How does she not do that with Mr. Sinister then? If she's able to go back to the memories, and can't she do the same with Mr. Sinister and have him be sympathetic?
Well, the idea is that, and Beast said this, Morph said this because he's got the animated series. I don't know if you didn't see this part. So Morph at one point when he was talking about Sinister morphed into, basically that's his natural look, his black hair, then he had the black eyes. So Morph was killed in the very first episode of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And then in season 2, it was revealed that he was brought back to life by Sinister, who was trying to use Morph to get to the X-Men. So that was the whole connection with Morph and Sinister, and that was how he looked when he was evil. He had the black rings under his eyes. But Jean was still recuperating. She was reaching out to Madeline, the clone, psychically across the psychic plane to help break free so that they could, do what they had to do.
So she can't do the same thing?
No, because the intention is that Sinister is so evil, he doesn't have that capacity. See, one of the things with Jean and Charles is that although they have the power to change minds, because they're the good guys, they don't do that. They will look for what's inside of you and maybe pronounce that so that you make the decision on your own, so to speak. But they won't say, no, you're like this now. Because that's considered an abuse of their powers.
But is she able to tap into another's memory? Or is that because she was also Jean and she knew?
She can, but you have to understand something too, is that Jean is one of the few what they're called Omega level mutants, where that's like the highest level you could go. Storm is an Omega and Magneto is an Omega as well. Mm-hmm. So she has this unbridled power. She can tap into memories. I think Xavier might have been Omega. I could be wrong on that. However, in many cases, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sinister was the case, these villains anticipate this and have these kind of mental, I don't want to say devices, but these kind of things set up in their mind to prevent that. So if they tried to, say, take over Mr. Sinister, when they try to tap into him, they might just see like a wall of static, basically, and not be able to get in. Yeah. Now, do you remember seeing Madeline Pryor? Bad camera work, I'm sorry. We're doing this late. There's no tripod. It's my thumb. 100% me. How do you like their ceiling, by the way? So, hold on. So do you remember what Madeline Pryor looks like in the comic?
Not at all.
Okay. So she does look just like with Jean. How about this? Because I can't move. I'm going to kick the... So she looks just like Jean. Her
Uh-huh.
costume was different here. As soon as I describe it, you're gonna know exactly who she is. She usually has, we'll say, a generous amount of underboob. You remember what I'm talking about now?
Yes.
See now. And you also in this episode saw morph for a brief second, morph into, which I actually paused it to explain that to you, magic, because as if you've watched this before, you know my wife doesn't like magic.
No,
and it's
correction. Her outfit is what I don't like,
okay. So
and the way she's being portrayed.
part one, well, you don't know how she's being portrayed because you
I'm
haven't
saying
read.
with the outfit.
Okay, so it's not so how she's portrayed
No.
as far as the story. It's
No.
how she looks.
Correct.
Do you judge a lot of people on their looks?
I'm talking about the way. Would you stop?
Uh,
I'm trying to cause trouble.
no, I'm not. So how do their alternative costumes, let's say, look to you in this one?
I mean, obviously 97, so I think they're trying to kind of fit the fashion to the
No.
times.
Goblin Queen's underboob has always been her costume.
But it's
This was hey, this is a cartoon.
I'll give you a perfect example. You showed me Magic in the show, and I know Magic from the comics. It's like vastly different.
But
so that goes to show you the fashion and the way they were dressed is vastly different according to their times. Obviously,
it has nothing to do with the time.
It is.
No, because that costume you saw for Magic was her original costume up until, I'm going to say, the 2010s, when because she was an inactive character for a very long time. You have to also understand that for the majority of the 90s, I'm going to say, she was also a young girl.
So you're telling me...
Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Her being an adult and being dressed, let's just say, more scantily, was not until... I think around the time like X Nation, and I did the same thing with the camera, sorry. Around the time of X Nation, so you're talking the early 2000s, 2010s. Magic was a girl who, she was included in this, by the way, because she gets corrupted by a part of her soul is used to forge a sword called the soul sword, which was, I think, a little bit more prominent. I don't know if it was in Inferno, but around these times I get a little murky with this stuff. And when she becomes totally corrupted, she becomes what's called the Dark Child, which is what you saw with the horns and everything. In fact, Magic was the first mutant to die in the 90s from they had a virus called the Legacy virus. It was a very good issue. She was best friends with Jubilee. And she got better, because it's comics. They get better from death. And the virus went away.
But you wouldn't agree with costumes being different back from the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Well, of course, but...
And now the modern time. Because that's the impression that you're giving me. That it wasn't different according to the times, according to you.
No. What I'm trying to say to you, yes, of course, costumes changed throughout the years. Madeline Pryor's costume, though, has always been as I've been saying, the underboob costume.
But it's always something different about it, though. Like the color or the style.
No, I mean, it's basically, it's a black, it's the same thing in black,
But even Catwoman.
This was done differently.
Even though it's black, how many different, costumes has she had? You know what I mean?
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but I'm telling you that Madeline Pryor has basically just had the one costume.
That's it.
That's it.
No variation or anything.
No.
I find that hard to believe.
Well, you could look it up yourself. The last kind of couple things I want to bring up when they showed these nightmare versions, when the X-Men. What stood out to you? What were your overall thoughts?
Creepy.
So what about Gambit, where he sees Rogue with Magneto? With the skin, that was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
How about Cyclops? He sees Xavier, basically a monster version of Xavier.
Same. Creepy.
Now, Bishops, you probably don't know. That was actually Bishop comes from a future where he's part of Xavier's Security Enforcement, something like that, XSE, I don't remember what it stands for. Him and his sister is killed by a time-traveling villain called Trevor Fitzroy.
Mm-hmm.
But she is kind of resurrected in the form of a hologram. So that's a guilt that he kind of carries with her, and that's who he saw in the monster mass, whatever you want to call it. So overall, you thought it was good. You were a little depressed, I understand, with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he comes back to be a very big hero, does that help you at all? And that it was done for his overall health and well-being?
Right.
Okay.
The ending kind of confused me.
About what?
Storm?
So remember, Storm lost her powers.
Well, how does that tie into the things that were kind of going back and forth with Jean, and all of a sudden we're switching to Storm? Like that part.
It has nothing. That's an epilogue. So Forge, who's an X-Men, you probably don't know, he has the ability to create basically any machine. You could say, I want a machine that dispenses water. He could build it. Just that's his power.
Okay.
He is basically helping her get her powers back. So that has nothing to do with this story, but it's going to deal, one would assume, with the overall series.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting that they're taking, at least to me at least, it's interesting that they're taking this kind of slice of X-Men stories, because I think Forge had popped up, I think it was either right before or right after this time, and I don't remember if Storm was depowered, but they had a very big kind of arc. In fact, Storm and
her powers.
She did. Remember the prior episode? She ran in the way of the.
But I didn't think she lost her power.
She lost her powers, and remember then she left on the train. She is depowered. Remember, Beast did all his tests. He's like, this might be a permanent thing.
Oh yeah.
So and in the stories, it actually led to her and Forge having a romance for a little while.
Because it was just kind of awkwardly placed at the end. So
it's
it was
an
kind of
epilogue.
Like off. Yeah, I know, but like still.
Well, maybe the next episode will have something to do with it. Overall, of the 3 episodes we've seen so far, where does this rank for you?
I think this is the highest.
The best, okay. Anything you want to see from future episodes?
In terms of...
Okay, so well, do you want to see Storm get her powers back? Do you want to see Cable pop up this early? I don't think that we would see that, but...
I want to see how they deal with the infant's virus and how they cure that.
I don't think you're going to see that.
No?
No, because the way it was always presented was that he had to be sent into the future where this medicine existed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was actually 2 offshoot limited series called, one called The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and the next calling The Further Adventures, where while they're on their honeymoon, Jean and Scott get sucked into the future. I don't know if they ever explained that. Help me out if they did. And help raise a teenage Cable who didn't remember them, didn't know them, but they, for some reason, I remember they couldn't divulge that they were Cyclops and Phoenix, but it came out much, much later on down the road. So I don't even think that went into how he got cured. I think it was always...
Why wouldn't they go into the details behind it? Why don't you think they're going to show it?
Because comics. The way it was always explained was, if you remember Cable, he's got the metal arm, and they didn't really show it in the cartoon, in Deadpool, but he has an eye that tends to flash, though it hasn't done that in a long time. The reason being is that when he gets to the future, that part of his body is completely overcome by that virus. And for many years, like his mother, he has telekinesis powers. He couldn't really access them because he's constantly using those powers to keep the virus at bay. I thought that there was an advancement in his condition where I know at one point the virus almost completely overtook him, and then he managed to almost purge it completely. But the more recent Fall of X series Cable has me thinking differently. But yeah, I mean, that's always just kind of how it was explained. In fact, there is, in the Age of Apocalypse, the alternate version of Cable, known as X-Man, was much younger, and was created by that version of Sinister as a Cable without the virus. And the problem is that his powers were so powerful. Every time he used it, he was actually destroying his own body. So every time he used his powers, it brought him closer to death. But I didn't read the end of that series. I know he's popped up in recent years, like in the New Mutant books, but I don't know how he overcame that problem either.
I mean, you never know. Maybe they'll surprise us and they'll show you how he's healed. You know?
I'm sure it'll be like a sentence explanation. It's not going to be a full episode, but this is what it is. Because it's science and biology at the end of the day. It's not going to be quite cinematic, I guess.
But you never know.
Any parting thoughts to share with the people?
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Peace, love, and comics. Technically, because we said it before the last episode, we don't have to say it, but I'll do it anyway. Hello to all our friends out there in YouTube land. It's your good buddy Philtastic Phil here, and
Hi.
speak up, honey.
I'm in pain.
And welcome back to our channel. So my wife and I just finished X-Men 97, episode 4.
Season 1.
Well, I don't know how they're doing the seasons tech. I guess because it's a different title. Yeah, it says 1 season. Okay. So this was kind of 2 stories in one. What are your thoughts? You want to talk about? You want to talk about them as one episode or 2 separate parts? Ladies' choice.
I'm just kind of lost.
All right. Why don't we talk about it in 2 different parts? So the first part was Montendo.
Look, I get what was happening, but at the same time, I didn't, if that makes sense.
For Montendo?
For both, really.
Well, let's talk about Montendo.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to focus on that first half.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jubilee's 18th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Sunspot get...
Who's Roberto?
Sunspot.
Who's that?
He was a member of X-Force. Basically, he...
So what's he in relation to Jubilee, though?
They're both mutants. They're part of the... See, during the 90s, you had the X-Men, you had X-Factor, and you had X-Force.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you had 2 different X-Men teams. Uncanny and the Adjectiveless. Called the blue team and the gold team. So he is also a mutant, and under the X-Men banner, but he's on X-Force.
So are they going out? Are they boyfriend-girlfriend, or...?
In this X-Men 97, it appears, yes, that they are romantically linked, though they have not been, to my knowledge, at least in the comics.
Okay.
So Jubilee and Sunspot get sucked into Montendo, a device created by Mojo, and have to fight their way out of this video game world. First, I know that I've spoken about him in the past to you. Are you familiar with Mojo?
Kind of, sort of.
How are you familiar?
Did I see him in a movie?
Definitely not.
Where did I see him?
I think I may have shown you, there was a one shot he appeared in a couple years ago, X-Men Black Mojo.
I think that's where I got him from.
Yeah, he is,
where I know him from.
he is, look, and I think that all the major comic book characters who have been around a while, you're talking Superman, Batman, X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Avengers, have some great villains. But then you have some villains that just aren't great. And to me, Mojo is one of them.
Yeah.
You know, he was created as I think by Chris Claremont as kind of a allegory about watching too much television. See, traditionally, and they kind of leaned on this, he would suck the X-Men into his interdimensional TV shows where if you died on the show, you died in real life, just like how you did in the game here. And they actually covered it pretty well in the first animated series. You'd see like Wolverine and Gambit, I think, in like a Miami Vice type of a world where they had to solve crimes, that type of thing. And it's for the sole purpose of basically numbing these slaves that Mojo has, and he has
I got
different assistants
from the show.
Yes.
But my disconnect comes from why? Like, we were at a whole different point
for episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like a completely different show, and I'm completely thrown off as to what that means or how it connects with the prior episodes that we watched. So I did not like it in that sense. Like, I felt really confused, really like trying to figure out why and how this relates to everything we've seen.
I agree. I think that this was definitely, of the 4 that have come out so far, the weakest of them.
Yeah.
Again, I'm coming from somebody who doesn't like Mojo in general. And I mean, to be honest with you, my thought was maybe the half of Life Death that we saw, the other part of this episode, was more so drama focused that they needed a story that was more action focused. It's the only thing I could think of to get that balance.
The second half was so
Well, hold on. Let's stay on the first half. I will say this. The first half, there was a lot of Easter eggs and fan service, not just for X-Men, but for things outside of X-Men. We were talking right before this started. My wife's never played the X-Men arcade game.
No. I think, did we?
I don't think they had it.
Here?
Yeah, I don't think they had it at Game Vault.
I thought they did.
They had X-Men versus Street Fighter.
I think that's what I remember.
Which, yeah, you probably you might recognize. I don't know if you saw Spiral. She works for Mojo.
Yeah.
She's in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she works for Mojo, sometimes she doesn't. I can't keep track of her. But I'll say this. I mean, you wouldn't like the game necessarily because it's side-scrolling. I
don't like X-Men, period.
Beat 'em up. My wife only likes games where we can fight each other, not help each other.
It's fun to see you all frustrated.
But the Konami X-Men game that they're kind of referring to was one of those, not one of the first, but one of the better of these side-scrolling games. The cabinet that was in was huge. I think you could play like 5 characters at once. And it was a diverse selection of characters. It had Cyclops, Wolverine, Dazzler, Colossus, or Nightcrawler. So they kind of did a nice homage to that. Did you see the Street Fighter homage, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, the car. Yeah, there's a scene, a Sentinel stomps on a car. It looks very similar to in Street Fighter, the bonus stages where you beat up the guy's car. Now, Mojo is usually tied in with a X-Men related hero who I don't like, called Longshot. I don't know if you saw, there was a stuffed animal of Longshot in Jubilee's room.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Oh, and it was a lot of like a very kind of Matrixy tone. Even the phone.
Yeah.
The phone, and if you die in the game, you die here. Spoilers, by the way. I should have said that probably 7 minutes ago, but here we are, and there's my thumb. So the Mojo story, I didn't care for. I don't like Mojo to begin with. Although, and he's one of those villains, too, that you don't really see pop up that often, I think, because you're kind of limited where you can go with him. I will say this, the X-Men Black Mojo one-shot story we were talking about, I think, was definitely one of the better ones. But I'm kind of surprised that our writer hasn't taken him on recently, because I think that you can do some kind of a story with him as far as like streaming services go. Like Mojo starts as like Mojo Flicks or something. But I'll leave that up to the professional writers. Jed McKay, if you're watching this, there you go, buddy. Send me a check and we'll call it even. Part 2, Life Death.
Wait, what are your final thoughts on Nintendo?
Again, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just okay. I appreciate the fan service, but again, Mojo's just not a compelling villain to me. Oh, and the whole thing was done kind of like in a Scott Pilgrim versus the World type of style.
I would say this. I thought it was an interesting concept, but I didn't really see the connection with the prior episodes.
I don't think it will connect.
Yeah.
Maybe, and you could say maybe you might see it later on pop down, because there was a little bit of connection to the first series, like when you saw them go through Genosha. You wouldn't have known that because you didn't watch the original animated series. That was an island that was supposed to be a mutant sanctuary, and it turns out it was a prison, basically.
Yeah.
And you did see, some characters. Oh, there's my thumb again. from the game that were in that episode as well, such as the Blob. You saw a little bit of I don't know if it was Thunderbird or Proudstar in that, but that was like the fan service part. And again, I feel like that was just there to balance out the second part, Life Death. Now it's been a while since I've read or reread the John Byrne era of X-Men. Oh, and there was also a Days of Future Past, not in the other one. But anyway, it's been a while since I've read John Byrne X-Men. But I feel like it's, with some minor variations, it's actually pretty faithful to the original story. Because Storm had gotten depowered, not by Executioner, he wasn't around yet. But Forge had to help her kind of build. I don't remember too many details because I was really young when I read that stuff. But even the style, just these sunsets and everything in the night scenes are very similar. Now, I'll say this. You're not going to understand 100% what's at stake yet. Because the giant owl is not the adversary's true form. It's something a little bit more sinister. No pun intended. Which makes me think we're going to see an adaptation of the X-Men storyline, Fall of the Mutants.
Let me put it to you this way. The first part was more tolerable than the second.
Tolerable.
The second was awful. The second part, I did not like at all. That's a 0 for me. I'm sorry.
I thought you would have been a little bit more into it because it had a little bit of that notebook flair to it. No. I will say,
it had a very sad tone to it.
Yeah, but again, that's why it's half. I don't know why they decided they had to split it up into. Maybe it's more than 2 parts. I don't know.
That was a no to me, or for me.
There was a nice little nod, I have to say. I don't know if you saw in the background. You saw the old pictures with Forge.
Yeah.
And that there was X Factor was in that picture. That was another X team with Havoc and Polaris, Strong Guy, a couple others. So, overall, how would you rate the entire episode, both parts?
Both parts together?
Yes.
Out of what?
I don't know, out of 5.
2, and that's even being generous.
Oh, wow. She's being generous. But I do agree it's been this was the weaker of the 4 episodes. And the second half, Life Death, she was right, it was a little boring. But I kind of feel like they needed to show
Wow, you
that.
actually agree with me.
Yes.
Holy cow.
I feel like they needed to show that so that you see where it's going. Did you like Forge's line to Storm in that? Like, what would he say? Something like you were a goddess? Or
Yeah. It's a little cheesy.
I was going to write that one down. Our anniversary's coming up. Oh, what I ask you? What did you think about the beginning with Magneto kind of like dunking on Gambit?
That's okay. It wasn't.
I'm the one who, I give orders. I don't take them. That was cool. Magneto did have a little bit of old man on my lawn kind of air to him at the beginning. So I do think that Life Death story is going to pick up significantly in the next episode. We'll have to see if you like it, number one, and if it redeems this episode for you.
It sucked, is what I think. And you agree.
You're
laughing, but you agree.
It was boring, yes, but it was starting to build up.
Build up where? Into a sad story?
The owl?
Yeah.
The adversary, I should say.
Did you listen to what the owl was saying?
He's, again, okay. I'm going to show you on the Marvel Unlimited app who the adversary is, and I think you'll understand it then.
You like depressing things. I like more upbeat.
Like what?
You like, I don't know, like movies that are more gloomy, like Sandman. Sandman is depressing. You were crying in one episode. I don't even want to talk about it. Yeah, exactly.
Doug, if you're watching, give me some ammo for her. Sandman, you didn't watch the whole thing.
We watched it together, if you recall, from what I was watching, and we watched three episodes, 4 episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sad as hell.
And you've given up on it. I have to say that. I have to still finish it.
See, you're into sad things. I'm
you
more
like
into fun, upbeat comedy.
Wait, hold on a second. So we're recording this on April 4th.
May the force be.
And I said to her right before we started recording, I said, I'll make a deal with you because I want to. She's never seen Empire Records, and Monday is Rex Manning Day. I said this weekend, I will agree to watch Empire Records. I'll agree that if she watches Empire Records, I will watch. You mentioned The Notebook.
Notebook is sad.
Oh yeah. So you're saying?
But that's a romantic movie.
Okay, Empire
Romance.
Records. You've got as bubbly as a movie could be, without being like, I don't know, diabetic bubbly, and in The Notebook, which is
That's romance though.
maybe Empire Records is.
Maybe.
Maybe it is. You'll never know. Hold on though. There are romance films I've recommended that you don't want to watch.
What?
The Crow.
No.
That's
Crow. Depressing.
The Crow is.
That's really dark.
The Crow is at the root of it.
That's
You
dark.
haven't seen it though, so how do you know?
I've seen parts of it with you.
You didn't. No, you said with your father you saw parts of
No,
it.
I seen
You
parts
wouldn't
with you
watch
when
it
you're
with
watching
me.
it. Yes.
No. Well, seeing parts of it, I guess, is shut this off. I don't want to see this.
No.
Yes.
No. The Punisher's also depressing, by the way.
The series,
The series, I don't even think I know the movie.
the movies you don't need to see.
Yeah, but the show is depressing.
Well, here's the thing with the show. I'll say this: I never fully appreciated the character of the Punisher until I saw how they depicted him in this show. Because, and maybe it's just because having a family, having children, it's like, okay, this is the worst day ever.
Yeah. You think?
Yeah. But we're way off topic. So, anything else you want to say to people?
Don't watch episode 4. Just skip it altogether.
But then they might need to have watched episode 4
You
to
don't
watch
need episode
episode
4.
5 or a future episode.
Not worth it. It's a waste of time.
Only time will tell. Peace, love, and comics.